Welcome back to We Need to Talk. We are joined now by Dr. John Rosa and our teammate, Aaron Taylor. Dr. Rosa is an expert on integrative approaches to treatment, combining medicine, chiropractors, physical therapy, acupuncture, and behavioral medicine into patient care. And of course, Aaron, who is a Super Bowl champion and a college football Hall of Famer and a prominent advocate on mental health support for athletes. Gentlemen, thank you so much for giving us a little time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, these are important topics and worth talking about, so thank you guys for creating this opportunity.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Rosa, let's start with you. As Aaron says, this is indeed a topic of conversation. The mental health of athletes in particular has really taken up a bigger space in the public conversation right now. Why do you suppose that is, and why is it so important?
Well, if you look at population bases of who's affected the most, the veteran population probably is the highest in disease with mental health. And second to that is sports. There's a lot of pressures. We obviously know what it takes to be an athlete at a level to play in high school, which then translates to the level to play in college and then elite level. So there's just much more pressure on these guys, not even bringing in the fact that what injury plays a role in. It's just the stresses of it. So we have a tendency in a population, if we're looking at, they'll say, well, college kids in general have mental health issues, so why is it so different for sports? It's a 50% difference from an average college student to what an athlete would go through with mental health conditions.
Well, Aaron, being that professional athlete and playing in college, you know the pressures of being an athlete. Why do you think it's so important now that these conversations are being more open and that these athletes are actually talking about their issues?
Because just like a sprained knee or a bad back or an ankle injury, we need to finally address mental health for what it is. And that's just health. We're talking about performance enhancement. That is the key currency that all these student athletes valued, what you guys valued, what I valued as an athlete. And it's time that we stop running away from something that affects our performance. We've seen the Naomi Osakas and the Scotty Schefflers who won the Masters, who was crumpled up with performance anxiety the morning before he went out and accomplished the single greatest accomplishment in his life, winning the Masters. We're all master compensators. It's not that we don't feel these things. It's that we're ill-equipped at times to have the tools necessary. But as Scotty showed, as Naomi showed, as Simone Biles has shown, we are resilient. And to me, that's the one thing that we need to do is take it away from being mentally tough or not, where it's binary, and look at it for what it is, and that's a continuum. Let's change out the word of toughness and add resilience. It's like a muscle. It's not whether you have muscles or not. It's how strong your muscles are. And what we know from a neuroscience standpoint is that how we think, how we experience the world, what we do, that is largely within our control. So this topic is important not only for the well-being of our country and the world, but specifically for our athletes who are well-equipped to be able to handle this, but we have to change the narrative and arm with the tools that are necessary.
Aaron, I love that you're saying that, because just earlier, Katrina actually said, as an athlete, you're not supposed to ever let them see you sweat. To that, Dr. Rosa, I ask you, when you do face resistance, how do you knock that down? If you have someone that you feel really does need some treatment of the mind, how do you break the stigma of that? Yeah,
well, look, we understand treatment for physical injury, but we don't ever have the discussion around mental health. We know that based on not being healthy overall and heart conditions and clogged arteries, all of a sudden gyms for physical health pop up all over the country. But nowadays we have to focus on a gym for the brain, right? I mean, we need to be able to remove the stigma of, and I hate the word stigma because in and of itself it makes people feel that there's something wrong. But you remove the fact that you're not just going to work out physically, but you have to take the time to go to the gym for the brain and there's plenty of things to do, even outside of medical realm. You got certain exercise, meridian type therapy and tapping, havening. You have yoga therapy, you have breathing exercises, meditation. I mean, we all see the unicorn apps that come out with Calm and the others, but there's some really, really good things. And I'm chair of the board at same here. It's a global health 501c, and we concentrate on that gym for the brain style thing. I think it's important that athletes know they can exercise a lot of things, not just going in to do bench press and triceps.
Yeah, but Dr. Rosa, how early is too early for an athlete to start to train their mind in this way? Because they're all perfectionists. They're trying to be their best selves in whatever it is that they're doing, and they're pushing themselves beyond the brink constantly physically, which means they're pushing themselves mentally.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, that's an excellent question, because it's never early. We had a suicide in Long Island for a 9-year-old. Okay, so this is not, it's shocking in and of itself to say those words, but it's never too early to notice. And it's really parents starting to understand what the athlete's going through, what your son or daughter is going through to begin with, then being an athlete, and just understanding what those pressures do. We're supposed to be in a sympathetic state, right? To be that fight and fright, fear, sympathetic, like I got a lot going on, I'm scared. That's actually pretty good, because without that, we wouldn't have survived as a species. We're just not meant to have that on all the time, 24/7, having to feel like I got the pressures of the world on me. And then now let's just layer the fact that we have an election cycle that's terrible. We have strife in the streets. We have a virus we can't see. You have the West Coast underwater, the Gulf Coast underwater, the West Coast on fire, and then let's throw the fog of war in. So all the age of kids that have been having that isolation to deal with, and then on top trying to perform at such a high level in sports, we're not in a really good place right now. If we don't start paying a lot more attention to this collectively, societally, I guess, yeah, we really need to make a difference here.
Yes.
Aaron, you've talked a lot about your youth. If you look back now, what are tangible, actionable things that you think could have made a difference? What are tangible, actionable things you'd like to see parents and schools and whoever implement at this point?
Have a unified code of languaging where we can discuss these things for what they are, creating those opportunities. I'm a parent, and I'll be real, at 13 years old, I don't know if there was anything that could have helped me, because I was unteachable at that point. But what I do now for my 12 and 13-year-old is that we circle up every Sunday morning and we check in. What's one thing you're proud of, one thing you're looking forward to, and something that's been worrying you on your mind. And we go around the circle and we just dialogue that. We don't dive into it. We don't try to be Dr. Phil. We just listen to each other. We also do affirmation exercises where we talk about the things that we respect and admire in each other, so that we bless the good as well. I've introduced visioning and the power of positive thinking. Our brains have no sense of humor. They can't tell the difference between a perceived threat or an actual threat. So if you're in this perpetual state of fear, like Dr. Rosa was talking about, then your brain is just dumping cortisol and cortisol and cortisol, and there's all these different physiological things that take place. So as parents, I implore you, have the honest conversations with your family. Make it a priority. Social media and these apps and phones that are designed to bring us together are doing the opposite. And Dr. Rosa's right. We're at the single greatest period of uncertainty that our generation has ever seen. There is a mental health tsunami heading our way. We're looking at the fish flop around on the reefs, having no idea what's coming. If we don't stay ahead of this and get ourselves to high ground, we're all going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I'd like to put an exclamation point on that, if you don't mind, because in my expertise as a surrogate to the White House and other stuff that I do with the opioid crisis, as an example, mental health colliding with addiction of all kind, we're losing 200, probably 400 to 500 people a day, and we don't talk about that. I mean, the amount of people in a certain age group, adding the athletes to that list, that we lose to mental health issues and addiction is like a few airplanes crashing on every single day. And we're not, well said on the tsunami. I mean, it started as a wave, and I've seen it for a while, but I'm running away from the shoreline right now, because we need to really put all hands on deck to pay attention. And it's a lost generation if we don't.
Yes.
Well, gentlemen, you've certainly given us things to think about, and hopefully our viewers things to take into action. We really, really appreciate the time.